Remember back in 2004? It was the summer of 2004, as I recall, when the Democratic National Committee had their convention, and John Kerry came out, and his first statement was to salute and say, "Ready for duty, sir?" or words to that effect, presenting himself as a war hero, which, you know, arguably he was. He had been wounded 3 times in Vietnam. He volunteered for service in Vietnam. He served with distinction. I say this because it's getting genuinely weird with Donald Trump and John McCain here. And in fact, Jake Tapper even took this question on the State of the Union program on CNN over the weekend. He was talking with Will Hurd, who is a fairly young Republican congressman. And he asked him this question, and Hurd, of course, gave a mealy-mouthed answer, which is all you're going to get out of any Republicans. I mean, we'll see. But here is the question, and here's Hurd's response.
I've heard from a lot of Democrats who only 11 years ago, 2004, when John Kerry was the nominee of the Democratic Party, recall, let's see if we can show those pictures, the Republican National Convention. There's somebody with a Band-Aid that is mocking John Kerry's 3 Purple Hearts. And then one of the standard bearers of the Republican Party came on CNN and said this.
The 3 Purple Hearts have never bled that I know of. I mean, they're all superficial wounds.
Now, Bob Dole went on to later kind of walk those comments back a little, but is there a double standard here? Are Republicans, they say, there's no place in our party or our country for comments that disparage those who have served honorably? Well, unless you're a Democrat.
No, you don't criticize anybody's service. You know, someone that's willing to go overseas, put their lives in harm's way in order for all of us to sleep well at night, you don't disparage that. I don't care what party you're at.
Right. In other words, he didn't answer the question. He didn't reference 2004, but George W. Bush did, or excuse me, John Ellis Bush did. Jeb exclamation mark. My last name isn't Bush did. On January 19th, 2005, this would be the day right around the time that George W. Bush was being sworn in for his second term in office. Colonel George E. Day, who is apparently with the law firm Day and Mead, but was a colonel, got this nice little letter from Jeb Bush. Dear Colonel Day, thank you for your personal support of my brother in his reelection. We just lost Neil. Okay. Thank you for your personal support of my brother in his reelection. I look forward to joining him in Washington for his inauguration. I'm so proud of the president and his reelection campaign. He offered a clear vision for the future of our country. Colonel Day, I know you will be joining other Swifties, POWs, in Orlando soon. Other Swifties. Please let them know I am personally appreciative of their service to our nation. As someone who truly understands the risk of standing up for something, I simply cannot express in words how much I value their willingness to stand up against John Kerry. Thank you again for your unwavering support, Jeb Bush. Really? How much I support them? Let's ask Neil McCabe, who actually is a veteran and a conservative commentator, political director with Gravis Insights, Florida-based pollster, columnist with townhall.com, gravisinsights.com, the website. Neil, welcome back.
Good to be with you, Tom.
Good to be with you. I think that it would not be an exaggeration to say that if Jerome Corsi had not published his book, Swift Boat Veterans, and the Swift Boat campaign had not happened in the 2004 election, for which Jeb Bush wrote this personal letter of thanks to Colonel George Day, saying, as someone who truly understands the risk of standing up for something, I simply cannot express in words how much I value your willingness, the Swift Boat veterans, to stand up against John Kerry.
I mean, Tom, the Swift Boat vets were guys who actually served with Kerry, and the genesis of the problem was not the Corsi book, but the Douglas Brinkley book that Kerry talked to Brinkley about writing a book about his experiences in Vietnam. He encouraged his buddies from Vietnam to talk to Brinkley, but when the book was actually written, Kerry was dismissive. He took credit for stuff that they had done. He exaggerated his exploits, and his buddies who had served with him had basically kept their mouths shut. But when this book by Brinkley came out, they just got ticked off, and they felt they had to speak up.
So you're going to continue the smear on John Kerry. You know, there was a similar smear against John McCain, Neil, that he was a hot dog pilot, that he was repeatedly reprimanded, that he got a lot of passes because his daddy was the admiral. There was even some concern that he might have played a role in that horrible explosion, you know, where the jet pointed its...
Of course, he was listen, McCain was a hot shot or whatever. Who else becomes a Navy fighter pilot? Before we move on,
well, a lot of people who are actually very good pilots and have reasonable self-control.
Well, having said that, a smear would mean that something that the Swift boat said wasn't true.
A lot of what they said wasn't true. The vast majority of what they said wasn't true, and those lies came out after the election, Neil.
He lied about being in Cambodia, and at least one of those Purple Hearts, he waited for his commanding officer to go on leave and then turned in the paperwork himself because his commanding officer had turned down the Purple Heart. I spoke to his squadron commander in Vietnam myself.
So you're continuing the smear against John Kerry?
I don't think it's a smear.
So you think that attacking a veteran who volunteered for service in Vietnam is a reasonable... You're standing with Donald Trump. It's a reasonable thing to do.
I'm saying that, listen,
I mean, you could argue that John McCain wouldn't have gotten shot down over Vietnam if he wasn't hot dogging.
I think that we're responsible for our actions. I mean, John McCain was a fighter pilot. He was fighting in harm's way. He was shot down. He was injured. I don't question anything he did while he was in captivity, as others have. As a politician, as a human being, he may be loathsome, but as his military service, I have no problem with.
So you are standing behind selectively smearing Democratic veterans and not Republican veterans. Are you outraged that Donald Trump would question John McCain for? I mean, you know, has there been a serious investigation into how John McCain got himself shot down?
I think it was investigated thoroughly by the Obama campaign, which is why all those smears against his military record are now available on the Internet. I mean, please. I mean, if you wanted to know what was wrong with John McCain, all you had to do was go to the left-wing outlets in 2008. I mean...
So you're supporting a smear of John McCain, too?
What I'm saying is that, from my viewpoint, John McCain's military service in his captivity was admirable. As a politician, as a human being, I find him loathsome. And I also can't stand his daughter. So, I mean, Trump shot his mouth out, and he's got mouth off, and he's going to have to figure out a way to walk it back. I don't know how he does that, but it certainly hurts the lower-tier Republican candidates when Trump continues to dominate the news, even when it's bad news. The negative publicity is not necessarily hurting Trump with regular Americans as much as, you know, it's got people in, you know, sort of the Beltway in an uproar. There's a lot of people who fear Trump who see this as an opportunity to finally go up against him. What
do you think about my theory that Trump's whole candidacy is a plan to take down Jeb Bush so Scott Walker can walk into the White House? The Koch brothers are behind this, Trump was in the meeting with the Koch brothers?
I was close to people who knew Trump in his organization in 2012, and he was very close to getting into the race then. He just didn't have his ducks in a row. This is something he's wanted to do for a long time. I don't think it's a co-conspiracy.
Interesting. Very interesting. Okay, Neil McCabe, always nice to hear your, always interesting in particular to hear your insights. GravisInsights.com, the website. Thanks, Neil.
Hey, be good, Tom. Bye-bye.
You too.